Most folks are terrified of walking into an empty house. I clocked out early that day, and I swear to God, I wish my place had been empty. Welcome back to my channel. Grab a cold beer, kick your feet up, and just remember, the folks in these stories had every opportunity to walk the straight and narrow. They just made the wrong call. Drop a comment down below, and make sure to hit that subscribe button. You're going to fit right in around here. Let me tell you a little secret about being married. After 25 years of sharing a mortgage, a mattress, and a master bath with someone, and trust me, the bathroom situation is the real, ultimate stress test of any romance. You develop a gut instinct about them. You know when the vibe is completely off. You feel it in your bones before you even see it. It's like a weird static charge in the air. That Thursday, I felt it the second my tires hit our driveway. I wasn't even supposed to be in the state. My tech expo up in Chicago had wrapped up a full 24 hours ahead of schedule. The keynote speaker had come down with a brutal case of food poisoning, took one look at the auditorium, and threw in the towel. Either way, I caught the first American Airlines flight back to Dallas. I didn't call, didn't shoot her a text. I figured I'd catch Claire off guard. Maybe pick up some heavy-duty Texas BBQ from that spot she loves down the road. Maybe actually sit across the kitchen island from my wife for once without our smartphones glued to our hands. I was in a great mood. I really should have known better. The very first thing I spotted was Josh's truck parked by the garage. Now, Josh is my boy. He's 28 years old, been hitched to Chloe for about 3 years now. They lease a slick little townhouse up north. A very pricey townhouse that I fronted the deposit for, I might add. So, seeing his Ford sitting at my place on a random Thursday afternoon wasn't just out of the blue. It was a red flag. Josh doesn't do casual pop-ins. He barely makes it to Thanksgiving dinner on time. I sat behind the wheel for a minute and literally asked the empty cab of my car, "Mark, why in the hell is your kid's truck here on a Thursday?" I didn't have an answer. So, I grabbed my duffel bag from the back and headed to the porch. The second red flag was the silence. Not the chill, lazy afternoon kind of quiet. Not the taking a nap quiet. It was a suffocating, heavy, dead kind of silence. The kind that makes the hairs on your arms stand up. I unlocked the front door and walked in. Josh and Chloe were planted in the living room, side by side on the love seat. And this is the part that still turns my stomach into knots when it crosses my mind. The TV was off. Their phones were put away. They were just sitting there, like two people in a dentist's waiting room who already knew they were getting a root canal. Josh looked up at me first, and I need you to listen to this next part very carefully, because this is the exact microsecond my entire reality shifted. He wasn't shocked to see me. Let that sink in. Your old man, who is supposed to be hundreds of miles away in Illinois, walks through the front door a full day early, and you don't even blink. No jumping up. No asterisk. "Hey, Dad, what are you doing back?" Asterisk. Not a damn thing. Just a slow, icy stare that I can only describe as purely calculating. Chloe gave this weird, tight little smirk. And I promise you, that smirk had absolutely no business being on a human face that afternoon. I dropped my bag. "Josh, what the hell is going on? Where is your mother?" He cleared his throat, shifted his weight, and said, "Dad, hey, we were literally just picking up the phone to call you." "Were you?" I shot back. It wasn't a question. "Mom had a bad spell this morning," he muttered. "She's over at Oak Haven Medical, but she's totally stable, so I didn't process a single syllable after Oak Haven Medical. I was back in my driver's seat in exactly 12 seconds. I know because I was counting my breaths. Adrenaline does that to a man. It makes your brain hyperfixate on counting numbers, while the rest of your world is actively falling apart. I dialed Dave on the road. Dave has been my right-hand guy since 1992. The man has carried me through a dot-com layoff, a brutal housing market crash, and the sheer disaster that was my attempt at growing a soul patch in 2014. If there's one guy in this country who will feed me the raw truth without sugarcoating it, it's Dave. He answered on the first ring. "Mark, talk to me, brother." "Claire's in the ER," I said, my grip squeaking on the steering wheel. "Oak Haven Medical." I just walked into my house, and Josh and Chloe were sitting on the sofa, like they were waiting for the credits to roll on a movie. dead silence on his end. Then, "What the hell do you mean? Like they were waiting?" "Dave." My boy didn't even flinch when I walked in. "I'm supposed to be eating deep dish pizza in Chicago right now." Another heavy pause. Then, in a very low, serious tone, he said, "Mark, I need you to breathe and stay frosty." "I am frosty," I snapped. "No, you're not," he fired back. "You're driving a 2-ton vehicle. That is not the same thing." He had a point. Oakhaven was a solid 20-minute drive with traffic. I did it in 12. I plead the fifth on how many red lights I clipped. Dr. Hayes caught me right at the triage desk. She was a no-nonsense professional, maybe late 50s, the exact kind of physician who gives you the grim details without her voice cracking. I respected that. I needed an anchor right then. She pulled me aside. "Mr. Miller, I'm relieved you made it. Your son brought your wife in a few hours ago. She came in with severe cognitive fog, major organ distress, and highly elevated toxic trace elements in her labs." I stopped breathing. "Toxic trace elements?" She nodded. "We're running an extended toxicology sweep now, but I won't beat around the bush. The damage we are looking at does not match a random viral infection or a sudden stroke. It points to something that has been accumulating. Accumulating." That word hit my jaw like an anvil. I white-knuckled the edge of the counter and looked her dead in the eye. "Dr. Hayes, are you standing here telling me somebody has been doing this to my wife?" She didn't blink. "I'm telling you that things aren't adding up, and I highly suspect you need to start asking questions." I walked into Claire's room, and man, I have seen my wife through every phase of life. I've seen her laugh at a comedy club until she snorted her drink. I've seen her mad enough to make me rethink my entire existence. I've seen her utterly burnt out, glowing with pride, entirely shattered, you name it. But nothing could have prepared my heart for what was lying in that hospital bed. She looked totally depleted, like somebody had pulled a drain plug on her soul and let all the fire that made her times Claire times just bleed out into the mattress. The monitors were chiming, the IV bags were hanging, and my wife, the same Spitfire who once chased a rogue raccoon out of our garage with a snow shovel, looked heartbreakingly fragile. I pulled up a plastic chair, grabbed her hand, and made a vow. I don't throw vows around for fun. Ask my buddies. I leaned in and whispered, "I'm right here, baby. And I am not moving an inch until I find out exactly what put you in this bed." I marched right back out to the surgical waiting lounge. Josh and Chloe had finally shown up. Shocking. Josh stood up, hands in his pockets. "Dad, we really need to get on the same page. There's stuff you don't." I put up one hand. Just the right hand. "Stop." And whatever absolute murder was written across my face must have translated perfectly because he choked on his own words. I dropped my hand. "Not right now." Then I walked straight over to the darkest corner of that lounge, whipped out my smartphone, and did the one move they never anticipated. I pulled up the Chase banking app and locked down every single account they were tied to. Every single one. And when the push notifications started buzzing in their pockets, because I knew they had alerts on, I watched Chloe's face first. That arrogant little smirk she'd been rocking all day, wiped clean off her face. Instant panic. Now the game was on. And that was the exact second I knew that whatever nightmare Claire was going through, I had just kicked over a massive hornet's nest. The only question left was how many stingers I was dealing with. Hey, if you're still hooked on this one, do me a massive solid. Hit subscribe. A ton of folks listen to these without ever clicking the button, but it's completely free and it keeps the lights on for the channel. Much appreciated. Now, let's talk about denial. Denial is a cozy blanket. Denial will pour you a stiff drink, pat you on the back, and swear up and down that it's all a big misunderstanding. That you're just a paranoid old man, and your flesh and blood could never commit the atrocities your gut is screaming about. I had been wrapping myself in that blanket for way too long, but sitting out in my truck in the hospital parking garage at 10:15 p.m., knowing my wife was hooked to life support 3 floors up, while my kids' dead eyes played on loop in my brain, I took denial out back and shot it. I locked the gates. And I called Dave. He picked up before the dial tone even registered. "Give it to me," he said. "She looks like hell, Dave," I choked out, and my throat tightened up in a way I am absolutely not going to discuss on the internet. The doctor dropped the word toxicity, said it's a buildup, not a fluke accident, an accumulation. I heard his heavy breathing through the speaker. Then he said, Mark, accumulation means intentional. I know what the hell it means, I growled. And Josh and Chloe were at the house. They're upstairs by the vending machines right now. Dead air. Then Dave dropped a piece of advice that will echo in my head until the day I die. He said, Brother, you need to rewind the tape. Think about exactly who has been handling Claire's meals, her coffees, her daily routines over the last 6 months. Who had the keys to the castle? And then it hit me like a freight train. Back in January, Claire completely blew out her ACL on a ski trip in Colorado. Awful tear. Required surgery. Josh had immediately stepped up to the plate and pitched the idea that Chloe, who only worked a few days a week as a freelance designer, could swing by the house every single morning to blend Claire's breakfast shakes and sort her pain meds while I was stuck at the office. At the time, I thought it was the sweetest gesture in the world. I literally bragged to Dave, man, maybe that girl is all right after all. I want to build a time machine just to go back and punch myself in the teeth. I headed back to the waiting lounge. Josh was leaning against the wall, trying his absolute hardest to look like a concerned son, and failing miserably. Chloe was sitting down, her iPhone shoved completely face down under her leg. Now, listen to me. You have to grasp how wild that is. Chloe is surgically attached to her phone. I once watched her scroll Instagram during the entire fourth quarter of the Super Bowl. A face-down phone meant she was terrified a text was going to pop up that I wasn't supposed to see, or she had just sent one she couldn't erase fast enough. I dragged a chair over and sat knee to knee with them. Josh swallowed hard. Dad, look, I know the optics here are bad. I tilted my head. Do you, Josh? Please, enlighten me on the optics, because I am all ears. He started sweating. Mom's been fighting off all these weird bugs lately. We were just pitching in. Chloe was driving over every morning, making sure she got her organic greens, her daily supplements. Her supplements? I echoed. Yeah. Which supplements, Josh? He flinched. What do you mean? I leaned in closer. I mean exactly which powders was your wife mixing into my wife's glass. He panicked and looked at Chloe. Chloe stared at the carpet. And that 3-second silent panic? That was a full signed confession. I stood up, towering over them. I need you both to leave. Right now. Dad, come on, I dropped my voice an octave. The exact same tone my grandpa used right before he took off his belt. Get in your truck and go home. They practically ran to the elevators. I grabbed the worst cup of black decaf known to mankind, sat back down, and did what any sane husband would do when he realizes his own blood is trying to put his wife in the ground. I turned into a private investigator. I pulled up every digital bank statement since December. Now, I'm no CPA. I'm a 5'5" year old guy who still writes physical checks for the plumber. But I didn't need a math degree to see the bleeding. There were ATM withdrawals, hundreds of them, $300 on a Tuesday, $450 on a Saturday, just low enough to sneak past the fraud alerts. But when I ran the final tally, they had bled $15,000 out of our emergency savings account, an account Josh only had a debit card for in case my truck broke down or the house caught fire. 15 grand. I called Dave at 3:15 inches the morning. He picked up like he was waiting for a pizza delivery. 15,000, I barked into the mic. From where? The rainy day fund. Hundreds of microtransactions. Siphoned out like clockwork by somebody who knew exactly where the tripwires were. Dave let out a low whistle. Mark, that's not a kid making a dumb mistake. That's a calculated heist. That's premeditated. It's my son, I whispered. And man, I won't lie. Those 3 words almost brought me to my knees on that cheap linoleum floor. My own kid mapped this out. We don't have the smoking gun yet, Dave warned. Dave, I said. I know, man, he sighed. I know. When the sun finally came up, Dr. Hayes found me exactly where I was, looking like a guy who had just walked through a wood chipper. She bypassed the standard doctor boundaries and sat right next to me. Mr. Miller, the heavy talk screens are back. I braced myself. Give it to me with the bark on. She took a breath. Your wife's blood is flooded with a specific heavy metal compound. This isn't an accidental exposure. This is a systematic, daily dosing over a span of months. Her kidneys are fighting for their life. But, and listen to me, we caught it in time. We're pushing the antidotes now. She is going to survive this. I buried my face in my hands for about 5 seconds. Then I looked at her. Doc, if someone was doing this on purpose, what's the delivery method? She didn't hesitate. It's almost always slipped into a morning routine. A heavy smoothie, a protein shake, organic supplement powders. Things that totally mask the gritty texture and the metallic taste. I instantly heard Josh's pathetic voice echoing in my skull. Asterisk, Chloe was making sure she got her organic greens, her daily supplements. Asterisk. I stood up so violently my chair actually tipped over. Dr. Hayes put a hand out. Mr. Miller? I have a phone call to make, I said. I called my lawyer first. Then I called the fraud department at Chase and nuked everything. Passwords changed, two-factor authentication routed only to my cell, funds frozen, legal locks engaged. I stripped Josh's emergency privileges. I canceled the auto drafts. I burned the bridge to the ground. Less than 20 minutes later, my iPhone lit up. Josh, calling 6 times in a row. Chloe, 3 times. Then a massive text block from Josh. Asterisk, Dad. What is happening? My card is declined at the pump. Why am I locked out? Call me back. As soon as possible. Asterisk. I just stared at the screen. This was the same kid who, just this past Christmas, had cracked a beer with me on the back porch and told me I was his hero. I had bought that garbage hook, line, and sinker. I had bragged about it at the bowling alley. I typed exactly 1 sentence in reply. You really should have factored that in before you tried to kill my wife. I shoved the phone in my jeans and walked back to the ICU. Claire was the priority. She was going to open her eyes, and when she did, I was going to be holding her hand. But there was a new feeling creeping into my veins. Pure, unadulterated ice. Because I still didn't have the times why asterisk. You don't steal $15,000 and slowly poison a woman who baked you cookies your whole life just for kicks. There was an end game. I just needed to find the map. I hit Dave up one more time as the sun went down. How is she? He asked instantly. Stable. They're flushing her system. Doc says she's out of the woods. Thank Christ, Dave muttered. Listen to me, Dave. I need a massive favor. I need you to quietly dig around and find out if Claire updated any legal paperwork lately. A trust, a deed, a life insurance payout, anything with a $sign attached to Josh's name. Dead quiet. Then, Mark, you think this is a cash grab? I think my son was desperate enough to steal 15 grand to keep his head above water, I replied coldly. And I think that 15 grand was just to hold him over until the main event. Dave exhaled. I'll make some calls. What Dave was about to uncover the next morning was going to make 15 grand look like spare change in the couch cushions. It was the nail in the coffin. If you've been hanging out this long and you want more of these wild, true-to-life family throwdowns, it genuinely helps the algorithm if you smash that like button and subscribe. 97% of folks watch and ghost. Be the 3%. Thanks, guys. Revenge is a dish best served cold, sure. But I prefer mine served perfectly calculated. Hot enough to leave a permanent burn, and delivered with a deadpan stare they'll see in their nightmares. Let me tell you about the truth. The truth doesn't always kick down your front door like a SWAT team. Sometimes the truth sneaks in quietly. It arrives on a mundane Friday morning via a text message while you're staring at a heart monitor. Dave called at exactly 7:15 a.m. I was counting the ceiling tiles in the waiting room. He skipped the pleasantries. Mark, you better sit down. I tossed my coffee in the trash. Lay it on me. Exactly 8 weeks before Claire ended up on a ventilator, she had secretly driven across town to a high-end estate lawyer. Alone. She didn't say a word to me, but that was classic Claire she loved, setting up massive, elaborate surprises. She could organize a neighborhood block party with the precision of a 4-star general. She had gone in to overhaul her primary life insurance policy. For decades, Josh had been listed as the secondary beneficiary if anything happened to both of us. Standard family stuff. But Claire went in and legally nuked him from the document. She redirected her entire $3.5 million payout into a local animal rescue foundation she'd been quietly volunteering at. She wanted to blindside them with a massive grant once the paperwork cleared. That's my wife. Go big or go home. The policy was worth $3.5 million. Josh caught wind of it. I have no earthly idea how. Maybe he snooped through her home office, maybe he saw an email, but he knew. He knew his mother was actively severing him from $3.5 million. And instead of acting like a grown man and asking why, he and his wife sat down at their kitchen table and decided their best financial strategy was to make sure Claire never survived long enough for the ink to dry. The legal processing window for the update was 60 days. Claire had exactly 15 days left on that clock when her organs started failing. 15 days. In their twisted little timeline, my wife had 2 weeks left on Earth. I sat perfectly still for about 20 minutes. I didn't breathe heavy. I didn't cry. I just let the absolute horror of it crush my chest until it calcified into pure rage. Then I stood up, dusted off my jeans, and made a promise to the universe. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to go to their condo with a baseball bat and give them a chance to play the victims in front of a judge. I was going to surgically ruin their lives. I dialed my lawyer, Sarah. Sarah is a ruthless, high-dollar attorney who operates with the terrifying energy of a woman who loves destroying arrogant people for sport. I laid out the whole hand. The stolen cash, the organic green shakes, the insurance motive, the timelines, every dirty detail. She didn't speak for a solid 10 seconds. Then she said, "Mark, do not go to your house. Do not text your son. Do not post a single cryptic quote on Facebook. Can you keep your mouth shut?" My lips are sewn, I promised. "Fantastic," she purred. "Because when I drop this hammer, it's going to shatter the foundation. There will be no plea deals. No loopholes." I gripped the phone. "Sarah, I want them to feel every single ounce of this." "Oh, honey," she laughed. "By the time I'm done billing them, they'll be feeling the draft in their prison cell." I smiled. First time in days. The next 3 days dragged like molasses. Claire was bouncing back. Dr. Hayes was thrilled. The heavy metals were flushing out, and her kidney function was climbing back to normal. On Sunday morning, she finally fluttered her eyes open, squinted at the horrible fluorescent lights, looked over at me, and croaked out, "Mark, you need a shave. You look like a stray dog." I busted out laughing. I laughed so hard a nurse peeked her head in to make sure I wasn't having a psychotic break. Hearing Claire's trademark, dry-humored sass back in action was like someone jump-started my heart with a pair of jumper cables. I leaned over the rail. "You're in an ICU bed, and you're roasting my grooming habits?" She smirked, her voice weak but razor-sharp. "Well, somebody has to keep standards up around here." I grabbed her hand and kissed her knuckles. I didn't dump the whole conspiracy on her lap just yet. She needed her strength. But I looked her in the eye and told her she was totally safe. I told her I figured out what made her sick, and that I had the entire situation locked down. She stared at me for a long time. Those piercing brown eyes that had been reading my mind since the 90s. She let out a heavy sigh. "It was Josh, wasn't it?" No question mark. Just a brutal fact. I didn't say a word. I just squeezed her hand. She closed her eyes. I always knew that boy inherited my absolute worst traits and none of my good ones. Even doped up on painkillers, Claire Miller was an absolute force of nature. On Tuesday, Sarah called me with an update that made me want to buy Dave a luxury sports car. Dave had managed to track down the security footage from a Walgreens 2 towns over. It showed Josh walking in and buying the specific industrial-grade dietary supplements in cold, hard cash on 3 separate Tuesdays. But on the third trip, the parking lot camera caught a crystal-clear shot of Chloe sitting shotgun in his Jeep, waiting for the goods. That supplement, when taken in massive daily doses, perfectly matched the heavy metal cocktail destroying Claire's kidneys. Sarah also had the Chase Bank logs fully subpoenaed. The money trail was flawless. And the cherry on top? The estate lawyer confirmed that Josh had literally called their firm, pretending to be a third-party insurance broker, to verify the status of Claire's policy change. He actually left his own personal Verizon cell number for the callback. Take a minute and respect the sheer stupidity of that. My son, a guy who orchestrated a borderline untraceable poisoning scheme, used his own caller ID to check on his blood money. When Dave heard that part, he just laughed. Mark, did you raise a criminal genius or the dumbest kid in Texas? I rubbed my temples. I think the answer is tragically both. They finally showed their faces at the hospital on day 6. They walked off the elevator carrying a cheap bouquet of gas station carnations, wearing the panicked masks of 2 idiots who realized their silent treatment wasn't working and they needed to play the loving family. Josh spotted me by the vending machines and immediately slapped on a fake plastic smile. Dad. Oh man, how is she doing? We've been sick to our stomachs. I looked at his shoes, then at Chloe, then straight into his eyes. She's awake. She's making a 100% recovery. I watched the micro expressions on his face glitch. It wasn't relief. It was pure, unfiltered panic. His brain was actively trying to rewrite a failed blueprint. Chloe stepped up, her voice shaking. That is just such a blessing, Mark. Yeah. The cops are pulling into the parking lot right now, by the way, I said. Flat, calm, like I was telling them the cafeteria was serving meatloaf. All the blood rushed out of Josh's face so fast he looked translucent. What? Sarah filed the paperwork with the DA this morning, I said casually. We've got the Walgreens receipts, the Chase ATM logs, the recorded phone call you made to the estate attorney, and Dr. Hayes' toxicology sweep. It's a slam dunk. Chloe let out a weird, strangled gasp, like her soul had just vacated her body. Josh threw his hands up. Dad, wait, just let me explain for 1 second. I stepped directly into his personal space. I am your father. And because of that, there is absolutely nothing you can say to me right now that won't make me want to put you through this wall. Shut your mouth. He opened it. I pointed a finger directly at his nose. He closed it. I grabbed the flowers out of his hand. Nice carnations. I'll make sure Claire knows the nurses brought them. They were in handcuffs before they even reached their Jeep. I watched the whole thing from the 3rd-floor window. Sarah had coordinated the arrest with the local PD, so it happened out in the open. Optics are everything. Josh tried to talk his way out of it. Classic Josh, always thinking he could debate his way out of a corner. Chloe just went completely limp, and I could already tell she was mentally preparing to throw him completely under the bus for a plea deal. Dave walked up next to me. I didn't even hear the elevator ding. He's basically a ninja when things get serious. We watched the squad cars pull away. How you holding up, old man? Dave asked quietly. I took a deep breath. I feel like I aged 20 years since Thursday. I want to sleep for 6 months. But at the exact same time, I am the most at peace I have ever been in my entire life. Dave nodded. And Claire? I looked down the hall toward her room. I could see the glow of the TV reflecting off the wall. Claire's untouchable. She always has been. She put up with me for a quarter century, which scientifically proves she is invincible. Dave let out a booming laugh that echoed down the wing. And for the first time in a week, I felt the oxygen return to my lungs. 3 months later, Claire walked back into our house. It was a crisp Sunday afternoon in November. She stepped into the foyer, dropped her purse, and just stared at the walls, taking inventory of the life she almost lost. Then she put her hands on her hips, turned to me and said, Mark, this living room rug is absolutely hideous. I stared at her. I literally bought that rug 2 years ago. She shook her head. It's the color of depression. Roll it up. It's beige, Claire. It's the color of a waiting room in hell, Mark. Fix it. I didn't argue. I pulled out my phone and ordered a new rug. Josh and Chloe got hit with attempted murder, felony fraud, and criminal conspiracy. Sarah tore them to shreds in the courtroom. She paraded the evidence around like it was the Super Bowl trophy. The trial took a week. The jury came back in under 3 hours. The judge handed down sentences that I won't specify, but trust me, they're going to be wearing orange for a very, very long time. And when the gavel dropped, I was sitting right next to Claire. She was squeezing my hand tight enough to shatter bones. When the bailiff led them out, she leaned over to my ear and whispered, I want a massive ribeye steak. I looked at her, like, right now? I have been eating hospital gelatin for a quarter of a year, Mark. Do not test my patience. So we went to the best steakhouse in town. Dave came. Sarah came. Even Dr. Hayes showed up. Turns out Claire had aggressively befriended her during physical therapy. We sat in a massive booth, ordered expensive bourbon, and I just watched my wife dominate the conversation, laughing and waving her hands around. And I just thought, asterisk, there she is. There's my girl. Asterisk. At the start of this, I told you I came home early and wished the house had been empty. I lied. I am so damn glad I caught that early flight. I am glad I walked through that door, saw the looks on their faces, and trusted my gut. Because if I had stayed in Chicago and eaten that pizza, if I had rolled in on Friday afternoon instead, my wife wouldn't be sitting at this table, and I'd be spending my retirement standing over a gravestone, never knowing the truth. So no, I don't wish the house was empty. I just wish my kid had turned into the man I thought I raised. But you can't control the monsters people choose to become when nobody is watching. You can only control what you do when you finally turn the lights on. I came home. I flipped the switch. And I made damn sure the roaches didn't get away. That's the job. That is always the job. If this story hit home for you, join the community by hitting that like button and subscribing for more real, gritty family drama. As always, stay safe out there, and thanks for tuning in.